Bethany.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing at the individual and the collective level.
Join us as we invite guests to share their personal paths to freedom.
To just allow ourselves to drop in and to find the brightness. Find the spot in your body or your being where it's bright and there's like joy available. And see if you can sort of let that brightness and joy resonate and vibrate and weave and move. And just feel the energy of it. And see if you can make it even bigger. And as you breathe in, imagine the energy of the oxygen going into that bright spot and expanding. Notice it in my face. And I can feel it haloing out around the space around the top part of my body. And just notice what happens in your body when you embrace some joy, when you find something bright and embrace it on an energetic level. Notice if there's any temperature changes or sensations. And now imagine that energy heading up through the crown chakra. And connecting to oneness. And as you send that energy out, notice what comes back. And now just rest. And prepare yourself to open your eyes back up. And then only when you're ready, do so. All right. This is Meah. Hello.
We start every podcast the same way. We ask our guests how they want to be identified.
And like, what other identifiers would you use? Like, channel.
If you were going to describe yourself to be and identify yourself to the audience or the people listening, and you could choose anything in the world, like, how would you want to be identified on this podcast?
That's a hard one. I mean, I would say healer, but I believe that I only ignite the ability for people to heal themselves because, healer, I would say healer. I feel like that's what I'm here. I feel like it's one of my biggest purposes in this lifetime.
Is there anything else?
Seer, visionary, girl who beats her own drum. Mm-hmm. Warrior.
I experience you as a giver.
Like, what are your favorite ways to support healing?
I would say energy work. That is what I feel as though right now in this moment is what I'm sort of like embracing and giving that, serving, embracing and serving, energy healing. and meditation, which to me is somewhat one and the same. And really leveraging the ability to share with people messages that are channeled directly for them from spirit, the other side, whatever it wants to be labeled as by the receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my first session, Reiki session, it's not, I mean, you do Reiki, it's like Reiki plus though, because
it's Reiki plus.
My first, it like, yeah, I got a Reiki session. I was like laying on the table and she was doing energy work with me, and she experienced my dad, who passed like 13 years ago, being there and like having things to tell me. And so we did our session, and then we sit down, and she like has her system where she takes notes and was like trying to capture all the data that's getting downloaded while she's doing her energy work. And then she sits and we sit down, and she'll walk you through like what messages were received during the, like while you're in that person's field, basically, right?
Right. Yes.
And it was, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was like remarkable. And there was some like proof of concept type stuff. Like there was like this and this and this. And then that stuff just happened. Like she's like, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And that was literally the next couple of days. There was all of these things that happened that were just like doubled down, like to an undeniable level of truth that what was coming through was, accurate and for me and stuff like that. So really cool, powerful experiences with Meah. And she just does this all day, every day. Like that's just what she was doing. And she does these really awesome ceremonies around astrology, like around new moons and full moons, and ritual stuff. And some of the ritual stuff we work together on. Yeah. I'm curious.
So in your healing, go ahead.
Like, because we've talked a little bit about some of your channeling abilities, and I'm kind of interested to talk about like everyone's experience of that is different, and probably everyone's capacity around it's different. So I'm kind of interested to hear like how you guys experience.
Yeah. So mine, so specifically what happens when I am in a session giving Reiki, I literally see, and I can only describe it as with my mind's eye, but I can see it. And I keep my eyes closed in order to make sure that it's just easier for me to see with my eyes closed. And so I see different symbols and sometimes numbers, letters, words, sometimes places that always mean something to the client. And I likely don't have any idea, although there's some symbols that come forth that are, that spirit shows me because I know what that is going to mean to the person. So for example, I sometimes see a baby crowning and like being born. And that is very rarely literal that the client is about to give birth. It's more likely that it's significant that there's a rebirth in their life. So sort of like the judgment card in the tarot, it signifies a rebirth for them, something brand new coming into their life. And then sometimes I hear direct, like I hear it in my mind, but it's not with exactly my voice that I'm hearing this message, and it is direct quotes that I'm to tell the person that I'm giving Reiki on. So I find it really, I love that I feel like I'm able to give multifaceted healings where you come in for Reiki for Reiki, energy healing, chi, prana, whatever you want to call it. And you also, in addition to that, receive messages that you need to hear, like in this moment.
It reminds me of medicine work. I mean, when I take a psychedelic, I have a similar experience where like stuff kind of popping in, and it's like it's like what I need to hear in that moment. Like I kind of make up that you're accessing the same intelligence or something, and being the link between the intelligence field and the person and being like a translator.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part, is the interpretation. And sometimes I get like some majorly clear messages that are uncomfortable to like relay, and I used to not. And then I realized it's just my like ego, basically. What if I'm wrong? What if I didn't understand it properly? What if they're upset about this message? But after time went on, I was just like, this is the message, and it always means something to the person who needs to hear it. Always.
What are some of the things that you've not wanted to tell a client?
Once this client came in, and he basically, his lover showed up, and very strongly with child. And he looked like he saw, and he was married. He looked like he saw like a ghost. And so, I relay these messages without any judgment at all. Like, this is just, oftentimes spirit does that because the spirit wants to make sure that this message is so obscure or so personal that I would have no way of knowing, but it's to tell that person to listen to the bigger picture, because there's more messages that, and it's sort of like confirmation. Oh, okay, well, how would she know that? Okay, so I can listen now and I can receive these messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's like that confirmation thing. Like when I worked with Meah, the whole thing was about my dad, and he had all these messages from my dad that had passed. And then it was like on a Thursday, and like I went home, and overnight I got an email from someone that I haven't talked to in like 13 years probably, which was a random capture of like an AIM conversation from when my dad was sick. And I was talking about the experience of taking care of my dad at the end of his life, and a bunch of stuff had come up around that. So I woke up the next morning to like the most obscure, like such an I didn't even know that he had that saved, and he just chose to send it to me on that day. And it was this whole it was an opportunity for me to remember. My dad's message was that it was okay to let go of some stuff. And I think it had to do with some of the pain and trauma that I still had around like how things were for me at the very end of his life. And so the confirmation was literally an email in my inbox of me of what there is to reprocess and like let go of. So
yeah,
that feels like a fun game for the universe to play, to be like, here's the top secret thing that no one can know, just to that someone can open all the way to hear it and not have like, I mean, everyone's got a skeptic, and I'm sure like, does everyone who signs up for Reiki with you know that they're going to get all these messages and stuff too?
Yeah, I do let people know, because some people are sort of freaked out by it. And, Reiki in itself is completely non-religious, and so people who might be religious can accept receiving Reiki and can like justify in their mind that this is okay. But messages from the other side, not everybody wants to know. Although I've found that everyone does want to know, but I'm sure there'll be that one person who's like, don't tell me.
Nothing. So Lauren, do you, like when you get downloads, would you say it's similar or different to what Meah's just described?
The things that are similar are kind of the way that you describe. I don't see symbols or numbers. It's always a feeling or a visual. Like I've seen memories, like people's memories, and kind of like the download and how you can't stop it because it just feels like all this data is being translated into your system. I really relate to that. And I've had moments like my dad came to me and told me he was about to die, and he came to me after he died. Like I've had these like random experiences like that, but my channel isn't something like if I, like at least right now, as I understand it, like if I was doing something every day, I don't think I would be accessing it every day. It's very unpredictable for the most part. The way that I can consciously do it the most is when I set the intention to enter someone's energetic field. And that's kind of the part that I see in you too, is like, I feel like I'm translating the language of energy, which I call the language of the world. Like that's the same language that trees understand. It's the same language that rocks understand. And I think that we can personify or become a microphone for any part of consciousness if we bring our attention there and we bring our intention and attention to that space. So if I'm coaching someone, the most regular place I experience it is I can see and feel in their energetic field, I guess for lack of a better word, what they would call their shadow or their darkness, or the parts, the feelings they don't want to feel, or the things that are often even blocked from them. So something that's been kind of a healing, grieving piece of my life has been that I'm constantly telling people something that they don't want to see. And then you experience like a rejection over, for so long it was a rejection. So I internalized that I was wrong, that I didn't need to speak up, that what I saw wasn't the right thing. And the gift of kind of moving into coaching and being hired, to support people's liberation is being asked to see things. And then that's helped me heal and give myself permission more to see things.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. I had a woman who came in for Reiki, and like you mentioned about seeing a memory, I did not realize I was seeing a memory. I just saw her playing with this little girl, and I saw her rubbing things on her feet. I saw her brushing her hair. I saw her like lifting her up. And then I felt like deep grief, and I didn't know why. So I guess I would add that I also feel too. And there's also a knowing with no explanation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And after the session, I mentioned what I saw, and she knew immediately because I described like all of these memories, and it was her daughter who had passed about a year before. And she had done a lot of Reiki, while it's also the review that I had just sent it. And for her, it meant everything. Like I'm not a medium. It just, this time, this is what spirit wanted to let her know, that her daughter's energy was there at that moment, at that time, and to share memories. But yeah, it's wild.
It's funny you say I'm not a medium, but like two of the examples we talked about so far is somebody that's died coming through with messages.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
I have a desire to normalize it more. Like, I think when we say medium or witch, or I think there's actually an othering that's created, or even we're participating in at some degree of like the patriarchy, like the way that these gifts have been perceived as like really out there, really separate. And I'm not like a scientist that's studying this or anything like that, but I especially believe that if you are biologically born into a female body, that there's an attunement when that female body is in its highest alignment and decolonized, that it is created to attune to nature, created to attune to the energetic field, and that all of us have the capacity. And men too, I don't remember in this life, I'm not connecting to being in a male body. So I don't know as much how that may show up, and I know for sure, like in non-binary bodies, I've experienced that. So, like that's my thing, is like, I think if we normalize it more, people would maybe be more willing. And I heard you say, like, I think Reiki or this energy healing is really not separate from meditation. Like all we're doing in meditation is learning how to access the energetic field of all of consciousness. Right. And then some of us have like a little bit more attunement based on our history. I think based on my trauma, I'm attuned to certain things. The field was open to me in a really specific way, really young, but I could see how that's possible for anyone, even in adulthood now, to like learn to access the field.
I mean, I definitely the two of you as like being further along.
And I'm like, girl, I was thinking this before today. I'm like, your whole life is surrounded by people like this. Like, that means you are that too. And Bethany has entered my energetic field over the phone and like told me things. So I really actually, this is a big toss for you. Like, I would love to see you internalize that more.
Well, like the way that you guys are just describing that, I mean, I was like, I'm listening. And like, there's been times where I don't do a lot of just sitting in meditation, like long period of quiet sitting. But like probably when I do that, like 1 out of every 20 times, it's not just like, you know, thoughts, release, allow, thoughts, release, allow, distraction, like that's going on. But 1 out of every 20 times, it's like as soon as I close my eyes, I'm just getting a ton of crazy images, and I've never made any sense of any of it. I was just like, oh, wow, this is like a show. Like it almost feels kind of like tripping or something, but it doesn't happen reliably. And then like, I'm remembering one time specifically, and I saw like a pharaoh, and like their face was painted half white and half black, and there was all this like flashing lights and animals and all this stuff, and it was like very, very, very vivid, like more vivid than any like medicine journey I've ever had with my eyes closed. Like, but that, I mean, it's happened like a couple of times, and then the only other thing in this realm has been I've had like these little messages. I say I can hear them. And like, I've talked about this with Lauren, I think maybe I've talked about it with you, but it's like my body hears them. So like my ears don't hear them, but like my whole body will kind of, it's not like vibrate, but it's like a piece of information. I'm hearing a phrase over and over again, and I can't not hear it. Like, it's not ignorable. And it's happened 3 times only so far that I remember, that I'm aware of, but it was like a message about what was about to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's like with
in your dreams, you have dreams where you're
some crazy dream stuff where like I get
where she's
like, especially if someone's trying to hide something from me, in my experience, and the more connected I am to somebody, it's like you can't hide anything from me. Like if I'm actually paying attention, I'm focused, because even if I'm denying it, or like I'll be getting, we're all like animals, we're instinctual. So there's like,
that's the part I don't like. I have so many situations where I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to know that. Or because it's somebody that I'm intimately connected to, I can feel stuff that they're thinking and feeling. And I make up that it does challenge me in intimate relationships and things like that. Quite a bit, because I'm accessing knowledge and awareness and feeling into things. And oftentimes they're not even aware, or like if someone's lying to me, or if someone's cheating, like I can feel it all. I know it's happening.
I would say I still do like a lot of so I can like really stay honest, like, but then it's something, when a piece of information is really coming through, it goes through all those layers and barriers that I put up, and it's just like, and like, I mean, all of the 3 things have come true, like, and they're specific. So, and it's always just about me. And I think, Lauren, I remember we were talking about, like, we were making up stories about what all is happening and what's going on, but you were like, maybe it's your future self coming and telling you something, like from a different timeline. And I kind of like that story. Like, I know it's a story, but I'm just like, I like the idea that I've come back to be like, prepare yourself, Bethany. And that's basically what's happens. Like, something's going to happen, prepare yourself. And I have time. Like, one of them was like a breakup. And it was just like, I got a download that this person was going to break up with me. And I'd never been broken up with before. And it actually was like a big deal for me that I took like a really long time to accept and process and like surrender to. And like 5 weeks later, that person broke up with me. So like, but I got 5 weeks to get my head right. And like, actually when that information came in, I was solid, and I was like, okay. I mean, I did a whole bunch of stuff about it afterwards forever, but like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, into the idea that we all have some access to this if we attune ourselves to it and listen to it. And I still have a lot of stories about how I'm not as far along and
Not one of them.
I don't know what to do about it, or like not as powerful. Like I get that.
Meah, what do you think of that? Like, what comes up for you?
You mean for, really owning that part of who I am? Is that what you mean?
Or are you talking about like everybody or me?
I'm just, I'm interested in anything that came up when we were just talking about that.
Yeah, just that I relate, and just that I think that, first of all, that's kind of how I started with meditating only and receiving receiving downloads that I didn't know what they meant. Like, and some of them were literally with my eyes open, like I literally saw these things. And I realized that the more that I sort of worked with energy, the more this was happening. But the big thing for me was being attuned for Reiki level 3. It opened up something in me where every single time I begin to channel Reiki, I get messages that it just is one with the other. It's called intuitive Reiki, and it's inadvertent. It just happens.
When did you have a period of time where you were like, I don't believe what's happening, or I don't know what this is, or you had resistance around it? Or when that was happening, were you just like, yep, this is what's going on and I own this now?
I would say when I was attuned, I accepted it and I was excited about it. But I remember way back when I was a kid where it was not as acceptable to like have anything like this happen. And it would be labeled as like demonism, which, I was raised Christian anyway. So yeah, I would say as a kid, I didn't want to accept it. I was so weirded out by it.
So you had this stuff going on when you were a kid.
I literally would hear it like it was like an outside person speaking to me. Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of how I experienced that thing. It was hearing, but not
in dreams, like dreams before they would happen, but exactly. Like one was so random. It was a bat that came into the house through the chimney and like chasing it around to get it out. Literally that exact thing happened, which has never happened in my life, coming down through the chimney. And anyway, and so then I actually started researching animal totems and shamanism, and like that's a whole nother rabbit hole of excitement. But yeah, like it's wild. You can't make this up. Like, and the more, it's like Pandora's box. The more that I add to this toolbox of energy work, the more spirit's like, and this, and this, and this, and this. So yeah.
Yeah, I really think that it's so much just about willingness and openness. Yeah. I believe that the energetic field or consciousness is like whatever you ask, you receive, whatever you seek, you'll find. So if you say, I am willing to access this, I am willing to be in this, then it becomes open to you. But you think about all the programming, whether it's religion or culture, there's all this programming that blocks us, makes us believe it's evil, makes us believe X, Y, and Z. Or like when I first had some of my first experiences, they were so huge. Like one of them was this other voice, which I now believe was probably my future self. This whole other energy took over my body and spoke through me and was like, but I was in the background watching. So it was like two consciousnesses inhabiting my body at one time. And it was so amazing, but I was also so shook from it. My body, I felt like my nervous system was like, nah, we turning that off for a moment, for a little bit. And so right around the time before my dad died, I was out here at the ranch where I'm now. And I felt in my field, like consistently, like you have to let go of this fear. You have to step back into this. You have to open back up because there's things that you need to hear and you need to be available for. And right around that time, and I made that conscious choice. I said, okay, I'm going to work through the fear. Because then I was starting to pick up energies. I was starting to pick up things that were scary to me energetically. And so right around that, that's when my dad came to me and spoke to me And I don't believe I would have been available for that had I not chosen and said, right, I want to be open. If we take medicine, if we go to a Reiki session, like some of those things are us saying to the universal field, like, I intend to get information. I intend to heal. I intend to X, Y, Z. Or like we feel a lot safer if, you know, we go to Meah and she channels for us and we trust her and her practice of that versus saying, I'm willing for that to happen to me. I'm willing to be, you know,
I feel like scared.
I am willing to hold
thinking
that.
about what practices I might do, like what orientation, like how much do I want to open to that, and then what would the practices, or like what would it look like to open to it more and see? Because I believe.
And Meah, I don't know if this is your example or what, if this is true for you, but for me, it's like a muscle. It's like something that I'm constantly learning how to have boundaries or have more agency around, right? In the beginning, it just felt like I didn't really have any agency and it would just come and I wouldn't know when, or, you know, it kind of felt overwhelming. And now I'm starting to feel more like, okay, I can consciously choose to access this. I can consciously choose to close it.
100%. Yes. In fact, I feel that the energy of Reiki travels through my hands to the client. And when I open my eyes, I can feel that stronger versus when I close my eyes and I don't feel that as strong because I'm simultaneously channeling messages for them at the same time. And I would also say that that's very true because I can tell when I need to make sure that my energy field is protected before I work with some clients who have a lot of heavy energy to sort of move through. So yeah, it's taught me to sort of, learn how to energetically like pull my own energy in and like shield what I need to shield. And B, how to clear myself after, a heavier than usual client.
I think that whole concept around boundaries, that's what I'm interested in. And that's what I have some like fear around, because like when I'm having dreams about other people's personal lives that I don't have permission to like no one invited me to go see what someone's doing when I'm not there.
So first, I think a general human condition, right, and I'm generalizing, is that we don't believe what we can't see unless it has some kind of consequence that we can't see. So like we can't see electricity on a daily basis, but we can see a light bulb come on, you know? So we believe that electricity is happening, even though we know, most of us know very little about how it's all occurring. And for me, the energetic field is more real than the physical things that we experience. Like what I see is not as real to me as the energetic field, especially because often when it comes to human beings, I might see somebody happy, acting happy, or having a happy face, or saying something with their face, but their whole energetic field says something completely different. And so I've learned to like trust what I perceive over kind of what I see or know. And so because of that, we only believe that boundaries, most of us believe that boundaries are this like physical thing. But what I am really, really learning is that there really is an energetic system. The way that I experience is like I have my consciousness and my body, and there's almost like a plug into the energetic system. And that's what I think our root chakra is. It's like the plug of the system that then lights up all the chakras. And I really believe that the chakra systems are so real, and they're like spinning energetic fields in our system. So what I believe is like, if you're an empath or you were sexually abused, or there's certain things that if your field was violated, like the boundary between your own individual field and the collective field, or your field and someone else's field was violated when you were very young, you didn't learn how to navigate your own energetic field. And there's like this opening, and that was my experience, is like I was just open. So I was just sucking in energy all the time, taking on everyone's. So then it felt like emotionally I'm in a washing machine of energy and emotion all the time, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why I was so wiped out. I couldn't understand why I was so overwhelmed. And so as the more chakra work I do and like somatic healing in my body, the more my core feels strength. Like I feel like I have an energetic core now. I feel like I didn't have an energetic core. I felt like a tree that wasn't rooted into the ground. So if there was a wind blowing, the tree gets blown. But if the tree is rooted in the ground, there's an earthquake, so many things could happen. And for most part, like a strong tree is going to stay rooted. And so I do think like on the journey to one, perceive and acknowledge you have a field, right? Like all of this is part of it. And then I think there's people that have super hard boundaries. They're almost like concrete, energetic boundaries. And they don't even realize that. It might be socialized, it might be genetic. So, and I see a lot of what we call mental illness or depression or certain things like that often be people not knowing how to navigate their own energetic field or how that field interacts with other fields.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, when I teach Reiki level 2, that is one of the things that, Reiki level 3, you learn cord cutting, which there's so many different ways, and it's always what resonates with you as the individual, but it's 2 different things. It's first protecting yourself really on a daily basis, especially if you're an empath naturally. And then second, if you just happen to be around someone where your energy field is sort of like disrupted, the ability to cut that cord, the ability to clear yourself from an energetic standpoint. There's so many different ways to do this. And that's part of like sort of what I had to go through myself as a human to learn how to help other people set the boundaries. And then if the boundaries are crossed, how to relieve yourself from the effects of the boundaries. Every time I give Reiki to a client, I say to them afterwards, do not watch the news and don't hang around with negative ass people. Don't put yourself in an environment where your energy is going to be disrupted. Like hold it sacred, at least for that 24 hours, the first 24 hours.
I'd love to know about your own healing journey, and however you interpret that, you know, what brought you to your own healing so that you could heal others?
I think that basically having a really crazy childhood, from literally conception to my whole childhood to, I want to, you know, I believe that some of the best healers that I really connect with have this similar story of like, you know, a wild past that, you know, having to go through something firsthand and experiencing it in order to literally overcome that and heal from it so that you can then in turn help others with their own healing journey. So
do you have a yes to like telling us a little bit about your childhood or like what you're defining as like a crazy
childhood? So
also, like what you want.
Yeah. So I would say just all sorts of abandonment and abuse and growing up in a Christian cult and working through those things, really not understanding at that time how it was going to affect me so greatly. I guess it's can edit this part out. It's throat chakra.
We can back away from talking about it.
It's because I want to speak with integrity and I want to the truth is a very traumatic childhood that included abuse, that included insane control, that included abandonment, rejection, and like a complete lack of love from from parents, and navigating through that. I'm the kind of person, like I moved out on my 18th birthday on March 13th and lived in my car. I'm the kind of person who I don't really sit in this victim thing. So I think that's why it's hard for me to like speak about like in that way, because I see myself as, what did I do to overcome it? Step one, leaving, even if that meant I'm going to live in my car. Great. Then I live in my car at that moment. And I always feel like that rock bottom moment is where you begin healing, like just surrendering, accepting it. This is where I am right now. And then really turning my back on the religion that I was so controlled in as a child, when I wasn't able to do anything about it except for accept it, to sort of being like, here you go, this is what I think of my past, and just moving forward, almost starting as an FU. And then like finding power in that, and really like, wow, this is actually who I am. And then that was the shift for me.
Well, that makes sense. Like a fuck you can be like, I mean, you can have a totally clean fuck you. It's like an expression of anger. And, you know, with CLG, we say anger, it asks you like, what wants to stop? And so it sounds like you're just getting in touch with a lot of things that you were like, this is going to stop, this is going to stop, this is going to stop. And for you, it was a fuck you. And then that was like the catalyst for you to choose to change some of the things that were happening, even if that required like a big, you know, living in your car or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah. And really just not accepting that, what you mentioned something about like it, really connecting with what you don't see even more than what you do see, realizing the same thing. And realizing it's such a farce to say that it's like wrong or dark, or like, I'm going to label it as this, like it just is. And it's what it is not understood, because there's this like taboo behind it, or there's this like, oh, you're crazy, which to me, that's a compliment. So thank you. But the stigma, that's the word I'm looking for, the stigma behind it. But I truly do think that is shifting slowly, but surely. There is a great awakening.
In some places, but even as we talk, I'm thinking about most of the people in my biological family that could listen to any of one of our podcasts, and who would just think so many things, including that I'm going to hell as a part of, you know, all the socialization around that. I agree. There is a big subset. I think it's way more mainstream than, you know, it has been. And I think that
the religion thing is, you know, like you, Lauren, you said, I'm surrounded by all these people with all this magic, and almost all of them grew up in the church, and it's like, and have sort of deconstructed that, or you know, changed.
And religion was mystical, and a lot of what I've read is that. Oh, go ahead. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, like to be in church, like maybe because since we were so young, and we're like, yeah, he came back from the dead, and this and that, and we're like, got it. Like the structure of it all maybe wasn't what vibrated for us energetically as we got older, and there's a lot of misguided stuff, and there's a lot of like power stuff that happens in religion, and like in church cultures and stuff like that most of the people I know experienced as kids. But there's also maybe an opening to magic that like we kind of were brought up in from a young age. So maybe there's a certain, you know, ability to suspend your disbelief because you're like already did that. So like you've kind of been trained on it a little bit too. Like there's certain stuff you're open to. And then it's interesting that a lot of the people who are the most bothered and like are the most averse to, you know, these kinds of spiritual practices, consciousness practices, energy work, and all this kind of stuff, and channeling and medium, all that stuff, are super religious. Like, I don't know, it's like a paradox. But it seems really linked.
Well, what I understand about the history of religion, most religions, is that they all kind of have a sect that's very mystical that went underground to protect knowledge and awareness that they had. And then there was like more of a mainstream, and that there's been kind of a collective agreement and understanding at the levels of consciousness and the levels of human beings who had influence, a belief that like if the collective, if the general public has access to their power, their gifts, the mystical, that they won't be able to control it. You know, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I think definitely we are living in the future of a past where it was thoughtfully separated and thoughtfully repressed. And that programming, that collective messaging over time, and the protection of whatever top 10% of people, you know, continued for so long that it feels like truth in the body of like for the people in my biological family, it would be the truest thing to them to say that. It would just feel like there's no other truth than that I'm going to hell, that Jesus is the only way, you know? And then at the same time in the church, I always felt connected to something bigger. And I'm like, I guess this is Jesus, because that's what you tell me it is. But I always felt connected to the mysticism. I wonder too, a lot with this shift in Aquarius, I believe that even astrologically, the connection to the mystical has been shut off to us energetically for a period of time. And that this move into Aquarius is about opening up access and like a remembering of, you know, things that were just common, like, you know, to the Greeks and Romans, or just common to the Egyptians, just to the Mayans. They would have just, yes, of course, there's gods and goddesses. Of course, you can heal yourself. Of course, you know, we can speak to aliens. Of course we can time travel, whatever it is. Like, I just think that in other cultures, those things were like, yeah, we do that shit all the time. It's totally normal.
Great. Oh, God.
I want to talk about tarot too.
Well, can I ask one question before we shift to Meah? I'm curious. Well, one, I'm going to contact you on the side because I want you to train me, but two, that's coming up. But do you think that you can do Reiki only in person, or like, could you do it over Zoom?
So my business started thriving when COVID first was sort of, since COVID. And the reason is because I do a good amount of my work remotely. So yes, I actually have a bunch of clients that I don't see in person. And I connect with their energy, and you learn that. I learned it in Reiki level 2. But yeah, absolutely. Anywhere in the world, you can even Reiki a past trauma. You can Reiki a past life. You can Reiki anything, really. So the fact that the individual is not there physically in front of you is not a barrier. And in fact, I find that when I receive messages along with giving Reiki, I'm like inundated 10 times more when the physical body isn't there to sort of like isn't there. And I don't know, but a lot of other healers who also do intuitive Reiki have said the same thing. So I'm thinking there's a connection with the body not there, and it's just pure energy.
I relate to that. Because I honor your answer, but I keep feeling called to ask you to like feel into my field in this podcast. So, and I honor like whatever you're comfortable with, but I just want to honor that it keeps coming up.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned tarot, and tarot is a good way for me to do that. So typically the second I start being a channel for Reiki to the person, it comes. Or there's all sorts of different tools we can use for reading and feeling people's energy. So
You're about to get a reading, Lauren.
would you like a reading?
Sure.
Or yeah.
The sound of Meah.
I think that what's coming up is that I don't trust a lot of people guidance, but something I do trust, like something in this conversation is like I really trust that she could read something, and I can feel the fear behind that because I know that there's a way that I protect myself to be the one that reads, like, so, and other people not read me.
Do you have a specific question? Like, is there something coming up that you have a question about, Lauren?
No, I don't.
I know exactly what you mean. I don't go to Reiki shares for this exact reason. I am so we share that, and it's likely why you pick it up in yourself with me, because energy is very real. It's not like I'm agoraphobic, but like even to go to the grocery store, I just really, who I surround myself with from an energetic standpoint is a big deal. And
I feel so special right now.
Especially when it comes to when I allow someone into my energy field. So I am the same.
Mm-hmm.
She's already starting on some stuff over here.
One thing that keeps coming up to say, I'm just honoring, but like I have like this really strong tightness in my back and my left shoulder.
So
yeah.
Shoulders are burdens. Shoulders are burdens, and it's typically burdens that aren't ours. We're taking them on. Left side is your female side. It's your divine side. It's your ability to receive. So if I started giving you Reiki and it was really like staying on your left shoulder for a while, that's an awesome thing. It's doing what it needs to do, and your body's intelligent enough to direct the energy where it needs to go. One of the biggest differences between Reiki and other energy work, like say polarity therapy, for example, is I'm not controlling it. I am just a channel. Your own body and your own self is going to tell the Reiki where it needs to go. All Reiki is energy. It's what we're made out of. So if it's going to that left shoulder, it's going there because there's likely like pain from a physical level, but behind every physical ailment is an emotional reason for it. And shoulders are burdens, and left side is receiving and our female. So it's likely that there's a part of your life where you're taking on other people's shit and it's not yours. And that's typically linked to childhood, where you were likely blamed for things that weren't your fault. And so it's become your burden. And so that is, instead of take this pill so I can mask it and now the symptoms aren't there, that's the biggest difference between, in my opinion, allopathic medicine and energy work or plant medicine. I'm not here to mask it, and I'm not even necessarily here to take the pain away. The energy is here to address your energy, and your energy is why, and all of ours is why we feel these physical ailments. And I always say, thank your shoulder, because it did its job. It's like telling you what it is that would need to be addressed in spirit.
Yeah, that all resonates. I mean, in some ways, sometimes I feel like the universe teaches me things. Like I feel like the universe is teaching me Reiki. I feel like the universe is teaching me the power of my body and the power of my sensations to show me what's in the field and how to heal and bring attention to those spaces. And sometimes I feel overwhelmed because I feel like I move so much energy. There's just always something, there's always something to explore, I guess you would say. It feels really good when there's just like this really lightness. And just specifically the feedback that you gave, I'm really, really deeply exploring the balance between my feminine and masculine. And my body feels like it's calling in like more balance between those two sides and more alignment internally, which definitely includes receiving. And I've gained a lot more weight in the last couple years than I've ever carried consistently on my body, and have done a lot of things to try to remove it and haven't. It hasn't left. And there seems to be, it just seems to be connected to this bigger body energy, feminine, masculine exploration.
Yeah, believe it or not, most women, it is their left side that receives more of the energy healing. It's almost like we are in this patriarchal society that is the modern world. Women are, I don't want to go down this whole tangent, but it would be surprising to many people to know that as women, why is it that their left side needs the most healing? They are the woman. Like, what's up with that? And it's because, in my opinion, it's a patriarchal society and we're not honored as we should be. I don't really want to begin this whole field.
We take on the patriarchy to be accepted. We lean into that and we cross out our natural feminine qualities to survive.
You're getting a little warbly, but we'll just go with it.
Yeah, so I can tell you, the Queen of Swords came out for you right away. So the Queen of Swords, I believe it immediately to be you. The Queen of Swords is an energy. First of all, cards are androgynous. So it could be a male energy, a female energy, or it could just be the energy that's around you now. There's major arcana and minor arcana. This is minor arcana, which means it's just the energy that you're in right now. So picture a deck of cards. You got the Jack, the King, the Queen. That would be the major arcana. And then you've got the minor as like all the other cards. Major arcana is typically, it's almost like it feels fated or destined, even though we all have free will. But oftentimes I find that it's very much so linked to sort of where your planetary alignment is at the time of the reading. All right, so let me just tell you what you got. So the Queen of Swords is someone who's a badass. She's blunt. She has a beautiful heart, but she's experienced enough in her life that she leads with her intelligence first. And so head over heart, and there are exceptions, but basically like she can see right through your bullshit, right through it. It also represents a Gemini, a Libra, or an Aquarius in your life. It doesn't have to. I get the energetic feeling that you are the Queen of Swords right now. It's with the Two of Swords, and the Two of Swords is sort of when we're in this place, we're not going left, we're not going right, we're not going up, we're not going down. It's a bit of a stalemate energy. And then you've got the World card to clarify that. And the World card is about coming full circle. It's about you are on an impending completion. And by full circle, I don't mean ending and then a beginning. It's that, but it's also that it's healed. You are ready for a new phase in your life. You're moving out of this Two of Swords energy, this like stalemate energy, to completion. What you got here after that was the Empress. The Empress is also representative of you. The Empress is the queen of all queens. She's someone who needs nothing from no one. I think of like Khaleesi before she turned crazy on Game of Thrones, like that, just knowing energy, like sitting up, like, yes, this is what I do. It's with the Seven of Cups. So if this were a love reading, Seven of Cups can indicate like multiple options, and you might not be in on it that this person that you're seeing has multiple options. In this reading, I feel very much so that so Seven of Cups also means like being in your mind with all sorts of possibilities. It can be the daydreaming card, and it also can mean all sorts of opportunities being presented to you. And I energetically feel that this is the case for you. You're moving out of this stagnation. How? By your own badass self as the Queen of Wands, going into the Empress, which is a whole nother level. The Empress is major arcana by this completion that is about to happen for you, or it's already happening, but it's here like touching this Queen of Swords that you're in right now. So what I would say to you is that, and you've also got the Six of Cup here, which is typically like the past coming forward. I believe it's coming forward for you because it's being healed on an even deeper level. All of this is bringing you multiple opportunities, whether it be in love, whether it be in career. It's bringing you multiple opportunities to stay in this Empress energy.
I was just say, like, I think recently I told Lauren about a persona of mine that I call Khaleesi, and she was like, "What's that?" And she was like, "Didn't you look it up?" And you were like, thinking about it. Was that you?
No, I said Khaleesi's on my vision board. We were all talking about
Khaleesi, and we were both like, tee.
Yeah, Khaleesi vibes for sure.
That's like that proof of concept, like little, yeah.
But I mean, not to get all Game of Thrones, that's who Khaleesi was. She was the Queen of Swords. Like she was, there was so much going on, and she still was who she was. Like her head up, her shoulders were back, and she was like, bring it. And that is such, to me, a beautiful energy, because we're taught to shut that down as females, but for it to shift by way of completion in major arcana to this Empress, where you're literally being served all these opportunities to expand. This is like, you're on that precipice right now. This is what's happening for you in this moment. I'll also mention to you that as I'm giving Reiki and the visions come in, like 90% of the time, they're always a redundant message. So a vision will come forth. Sometimes I literally get visions of the tarot card that's going to be pulled. And then as I'm giving, having the consultation at the end of the session, letting people know like what their message was, the last thing I do is the card reading. It's always the same message, always. Spirit like nails it in, wants to make sure that you know what the deal is.
Well, that's really similar to astrology, because like there's all these different ways to interpret the chart. And if you see it in one way, it's like, okay, let's notice that. But if you see the message in two ways, you're like, okay, like definitely pay attention. If you see it in three ways, you're like, that's it. Like this is a thing. Like that is going to happen. So there's something about like the energy of like the logic of energy and how we build more assurance or something like that, or importance or something like that around messages.
Yeah, well, it definitely resonates with a lot of what, my astrology, the cards that I've been pulling. My astrology, I think the thing that connected around astrology is I have had all these planets in Aquarius in my 12th house. And my Pluto is staying in Aquarius, I think, for like a year and a half, 2 years after this. And so this kind of behind the scenes preparation, as well as like healing of my subconscious. And then like, I feel like I've been on this deep healing journey and over multiple years, beyond 7 years, probably 15. And there's a lot of things coming to completion. I keep pulling in this Osho deck, it's called the no thingness card. And it's like being in the state of absence of anything, because it's kind of like pure potentiality, right? And like your life could go in so many different directions. I've also been pulling a lot of cards about lots of options, possibilities, things coming forward, and that kind of even transition from transitioning into the Queen of Swords as a result of this kind of, I feel like the universe has kicked my ass. And then like the Empress being the one that can like sit back and enjoy what that ass kicking has created. So that is, all of that really resonates. And I noticed at the end of the reading, like my back and shoulder that was so clenched, there was like a loosening. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that it's beautiful too for people who maybe haven't tried Reiki, who aren't accessing these tools. For me, even cards was like, and oracle decks was a way to validate and trust myself and trust the universe, like if I feel something and I interpret a card for someone or for myself, like, and I kept doing it, I'm like, oh, my intuition about this is right. Or the universe is trying to communicate to me in a million different ways. Whichever way that I allow it, it can be my best friend, it could be the cards, it could be a healer. Like when I ask, the universe will try to translate to me in a language that I'm willing to hear or be open to. And so I think people that are listening, just to even experience, sometimes we talk about things, but that was an experience of something, right, that people are getting a taste of.
Yeah, and I should also add that whoever stumbles across this little conversation, the message is likely for them too. That's how universe works. This is likely a collective reading. So whoever it is that their energy has chosen to be here with us, it's most likely also their message. And to your point about like, pulling a card and sort of feeling that validation from universe. Oh my gosh, if you knew, like, I have a close friend. I gave her a reading. I'm like shuffling, and I'll make a long story short. She was her own block. Like it was clear as day. There's only one card that represents Capricorn in the deck, which is unfortunately labeled as the devil, but it represents Capricorn. And so it was a 4-card spread, the message, the block, spirit's advice, and what she doesn't know. So she actually was like really annoyed at me that I told her, you're your own block. So good news is you can fix it because you're the block. So she's like kind of pissed, and like an hour and a half goes by. She's like, can you recheck for me? Because she just didn't want to accept it. So she did so with asking me to read for her husband. So I did. And sure enough, the exact same card in the exact same spot showed her again as the block. And this happens all the time. And I don't choose the cards. I shuffle and they come out. So spirit chooses these cards. And yeah, it's just different tools. I call them like divination tools. Like you could pendulum instead, or you can have, I forget.
You could open the Bible to that special verse that, literally, I actually think whatever is right. Some people, that's just like the only language that they're available to hear.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I love the point about the collective. That's also my experience, that the message, whoever is called in, that message is for them too, and that it transcends time and space, and that even some of the ways that we download messages for other people or before, like we can tell someone this is happening, is because our perception of time and space is so whack, for lack of a better way to put it. Like
great way
we just, yeah. So like outside of time and space, whenever someone is hearing this, we're recording it in this moment for them, even if it's a year from now.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no such thing as time when it comes to spirit. We make up time.
Well, I just think as we're getting kind of down to our landing pad time, our podcast is called Healing the Collective, and we've talked about your healing, how you identify, how you heal others, and would love to just hear your thoughts about healing the collective. Like, what do you think about?
Yeah, so I think that there is a great calling right now in this lifetime that we, in my opinion, chose to be a part of as light workers. And healing yourself is where all healing begins, and we are all capable of doing it ourselves. And by healing yourself, you in turn affect the relationship of all of those around you in a very healing way, which then in turn helps to heal them, or to, ignites them to sort of like get in touch with their own healing. I can tell you that I started this Facebook group called Healers United, and it started because I'm going to go back to Corona, but that's sort of like how it all started. I wanted to gather a whole group around the world of energy healers where at the same time we would channel Reiki, or for some it was prayer, for others it was being in a state of meditation and using visualization. Whatever it was for that person was what it was. But at noontime on Sunday, every Sunday, we had this intention to do this, and we did. It was wild. There were people who experienced literally the same visions as someone else, and none of us like knew each other in person. I mean, a few of us did, but this is about 3,000 people that had never met, and we're all just in this online group doing this. And imagine more people doing that. Like the intention was to heal everything and everyone, like raising the vibration of the earth, of humans as a whole. And eventually it shifted to something else. But that was, I mean, I feel like it starts with healing ourselves, but as a collective, it is absolutely a thing. It is absolutely possible. And that's what I believe is, again, the wave of the future, where we're going.
Yeah, what that makes me think about, well, one, I have just tingles all over my body, but when I was working on the west side of Chicago, I left everything because I really thought like the way to heal the world was specifically healing racism. And I can do that through education, and I'm going to go work in this community. And then I was introduced to poverty and all these other complex pieces of things that needed healing and how deep and broken the system was, and got really overwhelmed. And then read a study where they brought Buddhist monks into war-torn countries and actually tracked the data of violence during the time that the meditations were happening there. And it was like hundreds of monks that they brought into these different places like Syria and Jerusalem. And how there was a significant decrease in the violence. Like it's not like 0.1%. It was like 10%, 15, 20, high levels of decrease in violence for the time of the meditation. And I just kept hearing in spirit, like, you can heal these things through raising the consciousness and the vibration of the people that are like whoever's around, wherever the space is that you want to heal. Like that consciousness is where I have the most agency. Spirit, if you will, is where we have the most agency. So when you say that, a bunch of healers came together, I believe that is true. That interdependence, the ways that our energetic fields are interdependent with each other, and how just the way we can use that interdependence to create more fear and violence. And by, like, for example, like when 1 million people watch the same news, we are in a collective field of fear and trauma. But if 1 million people were on a Facebook group around healing and set to meditate, the same power is used in a different direction with a different vibration. And that's the way that I interpret what you're saying. And that I also believe that's a place we have so much agency.
That's exactly right. The power of the mind is so powerful. And so if you're going to sit, it's really why it all started. Everything with Corona, this is the death toll, blah, 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 everywhere. Like it was just only negativity around this virus that as a world we're dealing with. And so shifting that to acknowledging that that's there, but choosing not to sit in that fear and instead choosing to change your thoughts around it to healing and to not sitting in the fear just really does. It can shift the masses, and it does. I mean, that's touching on the law of attraction. Like when someone's sick, I'm sick. No, I'm healed. I'm healing. And when I receive energy work, my mantra is I am healed, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed. I'm healed. You have a choice.
Meah's really good about, like, if she hears me saying something or like where I'm putting like the locus of my attention, and she's just like, stop, no, nope, you're not saying that anymore, say this right now. And it's like, it really, like, having her to help me see when I do that and what I'm calling in when I'm focusing on certain stuff is such a gift.
Yeah, it's so much about the awareness that you're pointing to. Yeah.
She gave me my first set of mala too, and taught me different stuff to do around mala beads every day, which I've been doing.
Yeah, I think I always say mala it took me a while to sort of embrace mala, but now that I've committed to a year of it, Those of you who know, this is a mala. There's 108 beads, and the idea behind it is real simple. You're just retraining your subconscious. So people who are intimidated by the idea of meditating or anything, you have a mouth. If you can speak it, and you don't even have to, you can actually say it just in your mind, but I speak it out because thoughts are things and they carry energy, and to speak it to the universe is to declare it. And so every single day I do mala for different things. So I do 2 for money. I do 1 because I wanted to grow my hair longer and it has worked. I do 1 for self-love. And so this is 108 times per day. I do it in the car. And so my love one is the simplest. I am love. 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 The whole way until you get to the end. And it itself is so calming, just as you're saying the words. But literally, I'll tell you the one for money within the did I tell you that when I got I got a $1,300 tip, never come even close to that. And this wasn't a coincidence. Then like 3 days later, I had this offer to basically train an entire like yoga team for Reiki level 1, which was like a really big, there was no way that these things were coincidences. I was inundated with an increase of financial abundance from just repeating a mantra over and over and over again. It didn't matter that I had to visualize it or that I had to believe it. I just said it. That's it.
Tell her what you said about like where to start about manifesting.
Oh, well, you need to start with something that you can believe that you will attain, but that's obscure enough that you know that you did it. So mine was a KitchenAid mixer. I really wanted one. I could have bought one, but I was like, no, I'm going to manifest it. And so I did. And how'd I do it? I took a KitchenAid mixer picture from a magazine or whatever, cut it out. I wanted avocado green. I wanted it like, and how much are KitchenAid mixers? Like $400. So whatever, they're not cheap. And I had it there, like hung up in this place that I could look at it all the time. And every time I walked by, I would say, oh my God, I love my KitchenAid mixer. I would talk about it in my mind. I would thank it. I'm so grateful for the KitchenAid mixer. Well, I get this call from I'll call her a dear friend who's not the most generous person, who happened to be at Macy's. This is a true story. Who's like, hey, I'm at Macy's, KitchenAid mixers are on sale, and I wanted to buy you something because we had just got the house. And what color would you like? That really happened. And at that moment, I knew that I can manifest anything. I just needed to believe it and inundate my subconscious with it. This is just another tool for doing that. Parking spots, that's my favorite. The next time you go somewhere and it's busy, just thank you. Thank you, universe, for the perfect parking spot. Visualize it, see yourself pulling in, see yourself walking there, and you got the best parking spot. And that's literally my favorite.
That's such a gift, because I just found my mom's magic, because she says I always get a good parking spot. And so when we pull in, she's like, I'm looking, it's going to be right up front. And she always does. Like, it's always like the front, the closest thing you can possibly get. So even my mom's got some.
Yeah. And it's no difference. You can manifest a pair of leather boots, or you can manifest $1 million, but it's what you can believe to be true. And so universe doesn't care. Universe, it's the same thing. A boot and $1 million, it's just an energy. It's what you align your vibration with, that you already have it. You don't wish for it. You don't hope for it. You don't want it. You are it. You have it. It is in your present moment. You just vibrationally match what you want.
Mic drop, and podcast is ended. It's over. It's like I just feel like, yep. And that's what I needed to hear today. And that's whenever this is released, we need to hear today. And you brought it, like, with all the energy. Like, I'm complete. I got what I needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I love that this little cherub's never listened to a podcast in her life. So I'm like, will you be on my podcast? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, she didn't even know what to expect and stuff. And she's just
right.
like, I'm going to be here for this all the way. Like, I'm in. So
Well, yeah.
Thank you for saying yes, even. Because
Yeah. I just feel really like honored to be able to speak about what I once could not speak about, and share, and just it's really all comes down to being who we are, because who we all are is love. Who we all are is connected. That's why you walk in a room and you feel the energy of someone else, because you are them and they are you. And I'm really like watering that down immensely. But we are universe when it comes down to it, all of us, at what you see, what you can't see. And so to make that acceptable, to be embraced, especially, as a woman, for anybody, but as a woman, or especially as a child, sort of just like coming up and not having that shunned or shut down, is, to me, it's what I came to do, which is help change the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That's we would say that's what's yours to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I accept.
Most people, I think, maybe don't know yet what is theirs to do, or they pretend they don't, they've forgotten. But that's like an important question that I would ask people listening to this. I mean, you could probably spend time asking spirit around it or getting information, but like, what's mine to do, I think, is like the most important question of this time, because we're all doing all the stuff that we're going to do in our own ways. And that is going to have this effect on the collective that I think is going to be, and is currently being, and has always been positive and healing,
And I think it doesn't have to be so big. I think being your best on that day and in that moment, like letting someone go in front of you, smiling at a stranger, like texting a friend that came across your mind, whatever it is, there's no big or no small. It's just like being there to serve humanity because you're a part of humanity. It's being your best in the moment, and you're always going to, it's going to lead you to where you're supposed to be.
It's a good note.
Will you listen to this podcast when it comes out?
That's a good question. Yeah, I will. Hell yeah. Yeah.
It wouldn't have surprised me at all. She was like, no. Like,
Yeah.
I will, because I want to own it. Like, because bring it on. Like, this is my truth. I've never done a podcast. I've never heard even a podcast. But what I do make a conscious effort to do is live in my integrity as much as I possibly can in that moment. And I want to look back on this and like see where I was on March 5th.
Nice.
2021.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you. I hope I meet you in person one day.
I don't know, Lauren, just come here.
I will take good care of you.
I know. I'm going to do a Boston trip sometime.
Yeah. We gotta I just wanted to come here for like a couple of weeks.
Or distance. I'll hook you up distance. It's cool. It's interesting to experience the difference. I would actually say it's interesting to experience remote healing versus in person.
Yeah.
I'll set you guys up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies. Another one in the books.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, if you've got any feedback for us, we welcome it, or ideas about future guests, email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com. We are at Healing Podcast on Twitter, and we are at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Monda Creative, who edits all of our podcasts, and Two Tall Women Productions, who produce. Thank you.